Herzlich willkommen, liebe Leute, auf der Bean Stage hier auf der Gamescom und wir haben jetzt einen ganz besonderen Termin. Geben wir einen Applaus für Mike Pondsmith! Ja, wir begrüßen den Mann.
Alright, you guys.
Wir begrüßen den Mann, ohne den Cyberpunk 2077 gar nicht möglich wäre. Also wir werden natürlich auch auf Englisch reden, deswegen werde ich switchen. So I just told the guys out there that without you there is no Cyberpunk 2077. How does that feel? I mean, isn't it a bit of pressure?
No, it's fun, actually. One of the best parts was when we hooked up with CDP. One of the cool parts was that they're fans, like everybody else, of the game. So it was like meeting a bunch of people who said, yeah, we're really into this and we want to do it with you.
Yeah, of course.
So it's pretty awesome.
So you did pen and paper role-playing games, of course. But you have also done a bit of games. You worked on some games. But you are the Cyberpunk guy. You did Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk 2013 before. Now Cyberpunk Red.
Cyberpunk Red.
Of course. And it's a reason why Alwin's here, because Alwin is...
Hi, Alvin.
Hello. Is an artist, and Alwin can draw some things. So
cool.
Maybe you could tell him or describe him a Cyberpunk character. Maybe your favorite Cyberpunk character, and he will draw it.
Oh, I'm not sure he's my favorite, but he's the one that everybody assumes is me, which is Morgan Blackhand. So what I'm interested in is, you have to remember, this guy is like the world's best assassin. But he disguises it by, as we like to say, Morgan looks like an accountant. So he's kind of a really average, good-looking kind of guy. Sometimes a 5 o'clock shadow, business suit. And he looks like he's going to sell you something. And then he takes out his briefcase and he kills you. So I'd like you to take a shot at doing Morgan today, if you can.
Okay,
and
he
just
can try.
Yeah,
try it.
I think it's something you could play with. Just get an accountant and start from there.
I mean, you've got about half an hour, so it's not that many time, but maybe you can draw some nice things.
Maybe. Make sure you get the business suit and the trench coat. You know.
Yeah. You say he looks like a young George Clooney.
He looks like a young George Clooney
who played Neo in Matrix, or John Wick now.
More John Wick, I'd say.
More John Wick. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I love about John Wick, is that John Wick looks like a guy that I would have run into on the train. You know, I'm sitting there and there's this guy and I'm going, oh, he's got kind of long hair, but you know, he's a nice suit. Little do I know that he's the Baba Yaga.
I mean, John Wick is now Johnny Silverhand. So.
Johnny Silverhand too, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, there we can see what Alwin is drawing.
Cool. I like it.
Nice things. And Florentin.
Yeah.
Great that you're here.
Thanks.
Give an applause for Florentin.
Yeah, thanks. No,
I'm glad you guys showed up for Florentin.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the man.
Yeah. No, I have no idea about Cyberpunk. I'm interested in. He's a very big fan of Cyberpunk. Sandro, he knows everything, and he's kind of getting me on the Cyberpunk train. So I'm interested, novice. I know nothing about it.
Come with us to the dark side.
Yeah, I'm about to switch sides.
And you are an expert for pen and paper, of course.
Well, yeah, I do pen and paper, and it's amazing to sit opposite somebody who has created his own pen and paper universe. I mean, that's amazing.
It goes with the job, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. My mother used to say, you know, it would be really good if I could get a job actually making universes. And then when I actually started doing it, she said, when are you going to get a real job?
Yeah.
So it took a while before I convinced her that we actually are doing something for real.
Mm-hmm. I imagine it's pretty difficult to create something that's set in the future, because you have to pay attention to so many details, like how does rent work, how does the internet work, what's the political system, what is nature, like everything that makes the nature, you have to kind of think ahead. How do you do that? How do you focus on the things that are important?
Actually, the fun part is I describe it as basically making a pizza by eating a pound of dough, eating a couple pounds of cheese, a sausage or two, and a couple gallons of tomato sauce, and throwing up a pizza. Which is to say, you have to take stuff from all kinds of areas, put them together, and you have to make them into coherent form.
Yeah.
So I spend the beginning of my day usually about 2 hours on the internet just looking up things. Oh, look. Cool piece of prosthetic technology. Okay, let's figure out how we do that. Oh, yeah, let's figure out how we do this thing. We've had people on staff, that was their job, find out how things worked. I'll give you an example. I am currently trucking around a bulletproof backpack.
Yeah?
I have enemies, but that's not why.
A lot of enemies from behind.
Yeah, but the interesting part was I saw it, and we've discussed at Telsorian, which is my company, the idea that people in Cyberpunk future have everyday objects that are bulletproof, clothing and so forth. And I got into a discussion with a friend of mine who actually is a mercenary, and he said, yeah, well, there are reasons why you wear it or don't. So I found this bulletproof backpack, and I said, okay, let's find out how heavy it is, how hard is it to use, is it worse than a regular backpack or better, would somebody carry it? And so I said, I'll lug it around for gamescom and just see how it works as a backpack. And then I'll take it back out to the range when I get back to the US, and I'll take out a couple of the guns, put holes in it, and see how good it is as that.
Wow.
Well, that tells us stuff. It tells us how armor clothing works. It tells us how people use things. And we do that kind of exhaustive research on all kinds of stuff. It's kind of silly, but it's fun, and it makes sure it's accurate.
And I assume your glasses are bulletproof as well?
For sure.
No,
sure.
Actually, the lasers are stopped by this.
I see.
If I take them off, everyone here will die.
Lasers from the front, bullets from the back.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Mike, it's really great to have you here. It's an honor to have you here. And we saw a bit of Cyberpunk 2077. So, how did that all begin? I mean, when did
handsome dude there,
when did CDPR get to you to ask for the license, and if you're on board with them? And have you played the Witcher games to know what quality they are able to reach?
Okay, this is a bit of a story.
Okay.
And it goes all the way back before Poland left the block. And essentially what happened was my wife, who's our business manager, came up to me one day and she said, we've got these guys who want to do Cyberpunk in Polish. And this is before the Soviet Union broke up and everything. And so I'm going, well, that's going to be about like 5 people in Polish. And it turned out those 5 people ran CDPR.
Oh, wow. The right 5 people.
Yeah, the right people saw it. And so 10, 15 years later, we get a call, and it's their business manager says, I'm wondering whether we could talk to you about doing Cyberpunk in Polish. And they had just done Witcher 2, so they sent us a copy of it, and we finally got it up on the machine to run it. And I was going, wow, this is really good. Because, I work in video games as well. I'm going, these guys really did something really solid. So they said, well, we'd like you to come out. We'd show you our, studio and everything like that. And I went over, and the joke is I expected to find like 15 guys in a studio with a couple old computers and a goat. It's like, I did not expect, because I had seen studios like that when I worked at Microsoft. I'd gone over and, dealt with studios, and I went, wow. So I walked up, and it was beautiful. They had tools that I envied. I looked at some of their set, and I said, oh, Untitled, this is gorgeous. But then one of them started off with, well, this is great. We have to make sure that we have Johnny and Alt, for example, and we can talk about this. And I went, my God, they're shipping Johnny and Alt. Okay. These guys are into it, and I realized they knew as much about it as I did, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
So at that point, it worked out because we had the 2 things, guys who had the capability and people who really loved the material as much as we did and wanted to get something that felt like what they had played when they were in high school and college. So we lucked out. And it's been a real fun relationship ever since, partially because they didn't know I worked in video games. So when I came over, they sort of expected I go, well, yeah, I'll sign. And I said, first thing out my mouth, so how are you dealing with the frame rate problem here? And they went, oh, you know this? And I went, yeah, this is kind of what I do when I'm, not a Telsorian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
maybe that helps.
Yeah, it does help. A lot of times when you do a license, the question becomes, can I, do certain things I talked about in the game or a book in a video game? And some of those things are very difficult. But I had gone through, example, working on Matrix Online, and I could go, yeah, well, we tried that in MXO, and that was really tough. So, you don't want to do that one, But on the other hand, this would be really cool. And that helps in that relationship. So we're able to talk very evenly about all the mechanics and how things go together, as well as the lore and the storyline and everything else like that.
Cool.
So it's fun.
Maybe we could talk a bit about your world, about the world you created. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of the cyberpunk genre, but lots of works are quite similar to Blade Runner in terms of style, world building, and even in their stories. You know, it feels like the genre is stagnating a bit. In what way is the world of Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk 2077 special and different? What would you say makes this world so special?
Actually, it's kind of funny because as I've talked to people in interviews today, I realized one of the most important things is it's a cyberpunk world where you can win. I love Blade Runner. I have so many different editions of Blade Runner. It's my favorite movie. But Blade Runner is one, cerebral. It's a world where you really have to think about deep questions. And that involves something that most people, are going to have to work on. Two, a lot of the other cyberpunk-like pieces are really action films with cyberpunk trappings. They have the rain-wet streets. They have purple and blue neon. They have, all the things that kind of came out of Blade Runner, the starter kit for cyberpunk. What we aimed to do was to make kind of a cyberpunk rock and roll epic. We wanted people to feel badass, cool. They weren't always heroes in the sense of big heroes, but they were heroes on a personal story. They were heroes who were doing it for the people they cared about, for the things they wanted to defend. So they were not action big heroes, but the guy would strap on his Malorian and he would go out in the street to deal with the corporation that was going to burn down his neighborhood. And that appeals to people because that is a kind of cyberpunk where you can win.
Of course.
But was that like a difficulty for you to not fall into like cyberpunk cliches or just to go copy paste bits? Did you always think like, oh, I have to reinvent everything, or how do you deal with that?
Actually, when I started, there wasn't a lot to work with.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, literally, boy, I really just aged myself, didn't I? Yeah. But seriously, I had not actually seen William Gibson's writing when I started working on Cyberpunk.
Oh,
I had no idea.
Really?
No, it was kind of like, whoa. What happened was a friend of mine named Walter John Williams wrote a book called Hardwired. And Walter was in a playtest group or a play group for Mechton, which was a game I did. It's giant robots. And a friend of mine who was running the game said, yeah, you should check out Walter's novel. It was really cool. And I found it, flipped through it, and said, this is awesome. This is by Hardwired. I know it's in German. I have a copy in German. So what I liked about it was that it was kinetic. It had kind of that, attitude. And the main character was not unstoppable, but he was a man on a mission. And all the characters worked. And I think it influenced us as I started writing the game, to go, let's not, bury ourselves in the world is bad, but instead go, okay, the world sucks, but what am I going to do about it? So the attitude we bring forward into Cyberpunk 2020 and now in Cyberpunk Red, and I believe is really translated in 77, is the idea that you can change it, you can make a mark, but you're not going to superhero it. You're going to go make the mark on the street with your abilities and a heck of a lot of cyberware.
It sounds really nice. After the first 3 Cyberpunk RPGs or Cyberpunk pen and papers you created, there is a 4th RPG coming, which is called Cyberpunk Red.
Cyberpunk Red.
So, referring to CD Projekt Red, maybe, I guess?
No, that's another weird one. Okay, at Telstorian, we have code names for what we do. Okay. And so the previous edition had been dubbed the Green Edition because we use a lot of green as the core color. So I thought, I'm going to do something that calls back to the original, which meant it had a lot of red in it. So it was Cyberpunk Red. Okay. And I had never even heard of the Cyberpunk, or rather the CD Projekt Red guys at the time. So they called me up and they're asking, what's happening with Cyberpunk and all that. And I sent them back the files from Red, and they went, oh, it's all red. And I said, yeah, that's what we named it, And it was a total coincidence. So Cyberpunk Red happens in the period between the end of the Fourth Corporate War and Cyberpunk 2020, which actually ends about 2023 when we drop a bomb on Night City. And it continues through all the way to about the 60s, and then kind of like a relay race, we hand the baton over to CD Projekt Red, and they then continue. But to make that work, we've had to go back and forth continually to make sure that timelines and characters and backgrounds and down to the streets of the city match up. So it's been a really fascinating cooperative process.
Cool, sounds really great. Alwin, maybe we can look
Yes.
what you are doing there.
Yeah.
We see a bit of your work.
Okay.
Okay, is it like in your imagination, Mike?
Needs more guns. Yeah, normally like there would be trench coat partially open with like 1 million guns. So you'll have to get that
Okay.
one in next.
Okay.
It's a challenge.
There's a bit more time for you, Alwin, so maybe there will be a bit more of guns or bombs or something.
So you said when you started there weren't a lot of cyberpunk worlds
There was
around.
not a lot around.
But I mean now there are quite a lot of different cyberpunk worlds, and for me it's a genre that is quite difficult to define and difficult to understand. Like where is science fiction, where is cyberpunk? Like for you, you're a legend of cyberpunk. What for you is like the core
You are.
of
It's just like saying what's a Western. There's a lot of ways to do a Western. What's happened is that Cyberpunk has matured so that it is its own genre with certain concepts in it. One of them is a massive disparity between the people with power and the people who don't. The guys on the street versus the guys in the high tower. The other thing is that it's always motivated by some kinds of technology. The technology is omnipresent. It's something people can get fairly easily. And it has a double-edged sword. It can usually destroy or save. And the third element I think is important is that it is usually very personal. For example, Little Heroes, Norm Spinrad, I believe, did a piece where, all the characters are just street dudes. And they shouldn't be as powerful as they are. But they're in a desperate situation, and they overthrow media corps and do all kinds of insanely cool things to save their lives. The seminal stuff with Case in Mona Lisa Overdrive and Count Zero and so forth, those characters are trying to save their own lives. They're trying to get, their brain burn capabilities restored so they can hack again. They're trying to stop something that's affected their lives. So those three things, I think, for me at least, and your mileage will vary, are basically elements that you find in all solid cyberpunk. But you can't compare Blade Runner or Count Zero or some of the other pieces that are classics to I'm thinking, for example, Snow Crash. Snow Crash is wonderfully cyberpunk, but it is very different. And I love Snow Crash too, but I don't expect it to come out the same way as I would with art.
For example, on Reddit, wrote that, like the CDPR guys don't know what Cyberpunk is about. What do you think about that? Why do the people think, hey, that's not Cyberpunk? Because it's your world,
Because everybody on the internet is an expert, me included. No, really. That's, again, a problem because everybody nailed it. I feel like when I look at the product now, this is pretty much what I saw. But, people have argued that what we do isn't cyberpunk. Everybody's going to have their opinion on it. In the end, you have to make your choices. And those choices are based on what resonates with you. So there may be some guy out there who goes, cyberpunk is all about, big guns and big attitude. And there may be somebody else who's saying, well, yeah, this should be a thoughtful concentration of, how humanity deals with technology. your mileage varies.
Right. Let's talk a bit more about the world you created. So in this world, the main city is Night City, of course.
Night City.
Could you tell us something about the city, but also about the world outside? I mean, isn't it difficult to get a border so that the players cannot go anywhere else but in Night City?
Yeah, actually, with apologies to the lovely town of Morro Bay, California, I picked a place to place Night City that was far enough away from everything so that people would find it difficult to get out of Dodge. Night City was based in a place I traveled to a lot in college called Morro Bay. It's a lovely place. And I said, what would happen if we built an enormous city in this lovely place? It's at the juncture of several highways, but they're small. Nobody can leave very easily. And then I said, I'm going to get a copy of Sim City, and I'm going to build a city that is totally screwed up. So yeah, the original edition, and I sat down to go, how badly can I mess this place up? For example, if you take the freeway out, there's no time when it isn't rush hour because there's only one freeway out of the town. So if you hit the bridge, you're there forever. You know, there are things I know what the sewer systems in Night City work like. I've never bothered to throw them out anywhere, but I know it at that depth, and that's because I wanted to make a city that was pretty screwed up. Dirty, but is also glittering. It has technology on one side and the most horrible slums on the other. It's a place where you can live in perfect safety at the top of a skyscraper that's 100 stories high, or you can be in a combat zone where a dumpster is a good place to live, and the best you can get. So it has all the highs and lows of a technological society. And the best part is it's out there for you to explore and make it what you want to make it. So, somebody scripted the idea that, it's a city of dreams. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it really is. And it needs to be that, so you can make your mark in it.
Nice.
Is there anything nice in this city? Like, is there a playground or a fountain? Or is it all bad?
Go to the corporate center. Well, go to the old corporate center before I dropped a bomb in it.
Right, sure.
But it gets better by 77. By about 2040, Central Night City isn't too bad at all. We scraped all the radioactive stuff off into the bay. We did some fill. It's gorgeous now. But seriously, there are nice things. You have to have that contrast. It can't all be bad. If it is that somebody's living in a really nice situation right across the fence and across the freeway from you, you have something to aspire to. And you're thinking the gun in your hand or the gun that is your hand may help you do that.
All right. Unfortunately, we're nearly at the end, but before we look at what Alwin created, as someone who created such a dystopian world, how do you see the world today? I mean, is it like, hey, I've built Cyberpunk 2020 so many years ago, and next year that it's actually 2020?
Yeah.
Your vision of the future had so many similarities to the present. I mean, with mega groups like Disney or Apple, isn't our world on its way to that?
We get to make a choice. You can choose what you're going to buy. You can choose who you're going to vote for. Decide to make your own stand on a personal level. That's what keeps this from becoming Cyberpunk. But we all get to make some pretty tough choices that the denizens of Night City never had the shot at. Okay. Me personally, I don't want to go there because I like coffee shops. I like hanging out. And, I'd like to live in a place where there are occasionally birds that sing and don't follow the trees because they're dead.
Okay, really nice words at the end, but Alwin, it's your time. So what did you create? Maybe we can
let's check this
look
out.
For it. Oh,
the guns are there.
Yeah.
Mike,
okay,
is it your vision of him?
That's a good version of that's got Morgan there. He looks like he's kind of been up for a while, but yeah.
So that
I like the briefcase. That's definitely Morgan.
And that will be a character in Cyberpunk 2077 too, right?
Let's see. I think Adam's going to say no to that, but hey.
Okay, so I'm really excited about what he looks like to your version in the future. So, Florentin.
Yeah.
We are at the end, unfortunately.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming here
Hey,
and
thanks for
enlightening
having
us.
me.
It was really a pleasure to have you here. I mean, it's not that normal to have you here, so really thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming to our show here.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, man.
And thank all of you guys, too.
Yeah, give an Applaus
Appreciate
to
it.
Thank
Mike
you very much.
Pondsmith. Woo! Liebe Leute, wir sind durch mit Mike Pondsmith von Cyberpunk 2077. Die Zeit verging viel zu schnell, aber wir haben weiterhin ein schönes Programm, denn jetzt geht's weiter mit Adobe Live, auch hier auf der Hauptbühne oder auf der Bean Stage. Also bleibt einfach dran, dann haben wir Lost Amber hier bei Adobe Live. Dankeschön, Florentin, es war sehr,
Gerne.
sehr schön mit
Danke,
dir.
Sandro.
Dankeschön, Alwin, sehr, sehr schön. Thank you, Mike Pondsmith.
Dankeschön.
Alright, also bleibt dran, bis gleich, Leute.